All right, folks, welcome to the channel and thank you for a good response to my last video on the RX1R Mark III versus the Fuji GFX 100 RF. And post that, I had a few requests or questions as to what kind of focus settings I use on the RX1R Mark III. So this video is going to be about that and a request for all of you watching this to subscribe and help the channel. It's a non-sponsored channel. All that I have is you guys subscribing and helping out. So let's jump into the video and let me run you through the focus settings that I use on the RX1R Mark III, and it has worked wonders. Hardly ever missed a shot. It's just fabulous. We all know how Sony kind of smashes it out of the park, but sometimes the settings could actually not really get the optimum out of the camera. Let's talk about the focus modes. So if you go to the AF MF icon, and the first page there is AF/MF, and for the focus mode I mostly set it in continuous autofocus because I'm shooting people and people are walking, changing direction, random movements. So I generally set it to continuous AF so that the AF is tracking them and moving along. But if I'm very sure that I'm going to not shoot subjects which are moving, sometimes I put it to single shot AF, but most of the time I leave it with continuous AF. Priority set in autofocus, single and continuous. I leave it in balanced. I'm not particular, and the Sony has very good autofocus, so I really don't want to meddle with this to say that, hey, even if you focus or you don't focus, please release the shutter or focus first and then release the shutter. So I leave it to balanced. AF illuminator is auto. AF uh, shutter is on. Pre-AF, I leave it off because that might consume a lot of battery because the camera as it's on is continuously focusing whether or not you are half pressing the shutter. So I leave it at off. Now focus area, this is important. I generally leave it wide because I really want all the focus points to be really active. If you feel your subject is going to be in a particular zone, you can select that or the center, etc., and then move it when you require. But I leave it wide, and this will be also connected with the eye focus or human detect or form detect, so it works really well. We'll get there. Focus area limit, pretty much everything is on, so I really don't switch off anything. And then the most important here is subject recognition. Now subject recognition, I leave it on because I really want the camera to figure out if there are animals, trains, planes, cars, humans, etc., and focus on them. Recognition target is auto. Now this is a little tricky. I leave it at auto because if I put it on humans, sometimes it doesn't detect animals. It's basically looking for human forms, so it might not focus on a particular car or a cycle or something like that. So I leave it in auto, and it does pretty well. It does recognize whatever is prominent in the scene, and if a human is there in the scene, the human takes precedence over other things, is what my observation has been so far. So auto should work, but if you're sure it's only humans you're going to shoot, then uh, humans you're only going to photograph, then you can get it to human or any of the others as per your preference. I leave all of these on if you want to switch any of these off, because you're never going to shoot. For example, you're never going to do wildlife with this camera, so you could switch off bird, etc. But who knows? I mean, you might get close to a bird, so leave it on anyway. Now, face memory, I generally don't fiddle with it because it's not one person I'm going to shoot all the time. Maybe in a wedding or something, but I've never used it and I don't even intend using it. Auto magnifier and manual focus. If at all you're going to use manual focus, you could leave it on, but if you're going to be in autofocus most of the time, you can switch it off. And these are all not very important. Peaking display, again, if you're going to use manual focus, you might want to leave it on. Peaking level and peaking color, you can choose. So that's pretty much the autofocus settings. So focus mode, continuous most of the time, and then focus area wide, and subject recognition auto. That those are the three important ones, and I've observed that keeping them this way really makes the camera a monster as far as autofocus is concerned. I have hardly missed anything. And now this has to be combined with touch. So if you go to the setup menu, which is the box icon, and go to number 5, which is touch operation, and then go to touch panel settings and shooting screen. I don't know why Sony just buries some of these menu items deep inside. And then go to touch function in shooting. Now, since I'm connected to HDMI, it doesn't, it won't come up, but you can basically set it to activate the shutter when you touch, focus and activate the shutter when you touch the screen. So let's say the camera is tracking someone, but that's not the person you want to click. You can simply touch the person you want it to focus on and it'll also activate the shutter. So if at all you land up in situations where the camera is tracking somebody, which seldom happens, but it could happen that the camera is actually tracking someone else or something else, or it's tracking a human, but you want to focus on an animal or something, or a dog or something, this is really useful. So you just have to look at the screen and tap the dog. The camera will focus on the dog and shoot. So for that, you have to basically get into touch operation, touch panel settings. Of course, your touch operation has to be on, and then go to touch panel settings, shooting screen, and then go to touch function in shooting, and then make it touch shutter or whatever it says to activate the shutter. So that really helps. So this, along with the other autofocus functions I said, really make this a killer camera, and pretty much any Sony a killer camera. So hopefully this helps. Subscribe and let me know whether you use the same settings. Thank you. So that was the video, guys. Leave comments, and if you want to add something, your experience, add that too. And see you soon. Do subscribe. Thank you.